There you are.
Ah,
Hello. Can you hear
hello.
me?
I can. Yeah.
Excellent. Look at you.
This is my very first podcast ever, so I'm very excited.
Wow. Yay. Thank you for coming on. I'm really, I was just like, we have known each other for a long time, and thank you for doing the podcast. You are the first lawyer who's on, so I'm really excited
Excellent.
about that. What time
Excellent.
is it there?
It's now 7:03 p.m.
Wow. Okay, yeah, and it's like 8:30 a.m. here. How's it going?
Not too bad. I had a busy day today, so but I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about me, I
Everything.
guess. Yeah, exactly. Right. Everything. Yeah. No, it was a good day. It was a lot of a lot of perspective today, which is great. Now that we have this podcast, so it's a
Nice.
lot that I
Okay.
can I
But
did today.
listen, all your days are busy, aren't they?
Most of them are, yeah, but I think they're usually a different kind of busy, you know? Like today was busy, not necessarily in like the lawyer part of it, but it was just
Uh-huh.
busy in like running your own practice part of it,
Oh,
just like
sure.
yeah, the admin stuff.
Yeah, the admin stuff. Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed in even in Australia. It's like one person does everything.
Yeah, and that and I think when you're on your own, it's so difficult to delegate because I I'm horrible at delegation,
Yeah.
absolutely horrible at delegation. Because then there's also the tendency to review. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna teach you, then you're gonna do it, and then I'm gonna redo it. So instead of me doing it once, now I'm gonna do it 3 times.
Yeah. And that's also a challenge with hiring, isn't it? Like finding the right person who'll actually be able to.
Absolutely, 100%. And I mean, also, I think especially in an area I think like law where especially in the kind of law that I practice. So I do family law and I do litigation, so
Mhm.
I do a lot in court stuff. And in family law, obviously there's the financial issues and stuff, but there's also more personal intimate issues. It's the breakdown of a relationship, you're dealing with kids and things. So when I'm hiring someone, I have to now also one of the other things that I have to look at is, okay, is this person going to be sensitive to like with some of my clients, especially with the kind of stuff that they're dealing with. So, for lack of a better word, you may be a great lawyer, but a crappy person. So then you're not really in a, you may not be the best suited for this job. So that's kind of like an added layer when you're trying to hire someone.
Yeah. And how long have you been practicing law now? Like when did you finish studying and when did you actively start practicing?
So I graduated law school in 2016. So this year is our 10-year anniversary. So, and I was called,
Congratulations.
thank you. And then I was called to the bar the year after. So I've been practicing since 2017. Holy,
Okay.
9 years.
Look at us, huh?
That's crazy. Oh my gosh, 9 years. Yeah,
Yeah. Excellent.
yeah.
I was just telling, like, when I turned it on, I was like, yeah, Supriya is a lawyer, and we've known each other for a few years because of our shared love of Suryagarh and Jaisalmer. But I think it's
100%.
your shared love of Rajasthan in general, not just particularly Suryagarh.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's just, like I think and just love of people who are also like passionate about whatever it is that they do, which I think is really important, especially honestly when you're in a profession like at least I feel in the law, because I've always felt I've done everything very traditionally, so to speak, right? I did high school, then I did undergrad, then I did law school, and now I'm working. So it's so nice to be able to like connect with people outside of what you do.
Yeah.
And and like that's so cool that you'd connect with someone. I know, like we met because you did an Instagram post and I was like, oh my God, I love this post, I love this place. And I remember I just emailed you being like, I saw your post and holy shit, you're awesome.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It was
wouldn't
a post. I think. Yeah, there was a post with I think there were sparrows drinking water out of a glass or something on one of the tables at Suryagarh. And then
yeah,
you ended up buying some of my brooches. You bought one of my hand painted baseball caps, and then when you traveled to India, that is when we actually ended up meeting for the first time. And I remember you got me a bottle of wine all the way from Toronto.
remember.
Yeah.
With, immediately.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. But it's been nice. Like every time then you came to Delhi, we would hang out at the hotel. And then, of course, we've also traveled to Surigate together and we've been to Marybudden. And yeah, it's been fun.
We went to Mary, but I forgot about that. Yeah. Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of my favorite things though that I bought off you was the bag, the tote bag, which I still use.
Yeah, yeah. The Rajasthan, I think, Bikanir one, if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Still using it. What?
Yeah, I love that bag. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
maybe
you
I
know
should.
that it's kind of like so that reminds me of one of early days, one of my mentors, the advice that she gave me, which was don't let what you do be who you are because you'll burn out. Like immediately, like you'll burn out so quick, like you won't even realize it. So it's so nice to be able to cultivate, what you do outside, sorry, who you are, like outside of your work and stuff. So it's really nice. Obviously, a part of what we do is it's a huge part of who we are also. But yeah, so it's nice to have likes and interests and personalities like outside of my job.
You do, but you travel quite a bit every year, and you travel to all parts of the world. You have
Yeah.
interest in history, so you go to all these historical places.
Yeah. So like I'm a massive World War II enthusiast, which yeah, so yeah, I try to. So, like, one of the things that I've always wanted to do is visit all of the battlefields and the battle sites that I've studied. So, I've seen pretty much like all of the Western Front of the Second World War and most of the Eastern Front as well. So, it's cool. Yeah, one of my closest friends, her 40th birthday is coming up, and we're celebrating in France. And one of the places we're going is Normandy again, where the D-Day beaches were, and Dunkirk. So, if anyone's seen
Oh,
the Chris Nolan movie, yeah, so it'll be really cool. So I'm excited.
how did you develop an interest in World War II stuff?
It was actually so my grandfather was in the Air Force, in the Indian Air Force, and his father, during the time of the British Raj, so he was like the highest placed that an Indian could be, and he fought in Burma in the Second World War. So it was just something that um, it would be, it was just something that we sort of talked about a lot, and then yeah, it was just always there. And then honestly, it was my 10th grade history teacher, Mr. Stroud, and he like changed my life. It was just it was just so fascinating to me. The concept, just this idea, of that. Like I will never forget. This was in grade 10, so I would have been 16 years old or something. And when we were like, taking notes, I actually stopped taking notes. And I remember, and he was like, "What happened to you?" Because I used to, obviously, teacher's pet, used to sit in the front. And he's like, "What happened to you?" I was like, what do you mean they declared war? Like, what does that even mean? Like, how can you just say that? Like, what does that? And yeah, and so I was just really interested in it. So, he took like extra time and it was just something that I sort of developed more and I was more and more interested in it. I studied history and political science in undergrad as well. So yeah, it's just something that I kept and it's something that I just find fascinating in terms of, technological advancements, war strategies, geopolitics, all of that. And you'd be surprised at how much of what was learned in the Second World War people have like already forgotten.
Oh, sure.
Like
Of course. Yeah. That's
like
why I'm
there's
fascinated that this is something that you were interested in because obviously you don't skim things. You deep dive into things when you're interested in them.
0 to 100, 100%. Yeah. And actually, I don't know if you can see, but I'll just show you. I got there, you can now see it, but that's on my desk there. That's an RAF air mask from the Second World War. Yeah.
Ooh, you go hard, Supriya.
Yeah. So,
Amazing.
that's something that keeps me interested. And I think it also honestly helps a lot with burnout.
Ah.
Yeah, because it's something else to fuel your curiosity and something else to like fuel a sense of achievement. Because I feel like if your sense of achievement is always tied to your work, like you're going to be burnt out because you're never going to feel successful in anything else.
Yeah, that's one of the things I feel like I struggle with, because for me, it's kind of what I do is what I also enjoy even when I'm not working. Photography,
Yeah.
for example. So yeah, it's interesting that I work is also photography, and then my interest is also photography. So I should maybe find something that is not related to the visual arts.
Or something else that's related to the visual arts, because otherwise you'll just always be working, even when you're not working.
I am.
Never gets to think of something else.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Also, with your law practice, is this something that you always wanted to do, or is this because your father is a lawyer and it just kind of naturally flowed into, and it interested you? Like, did you imagine being a lawyer would be like, oh, I'll be in court and I'll be doing these cases and talking in the courtroom? Was that something that interested you? What really got you interested?
Um, I think I always wanted to be a lawyer. It was, I mean, I didn't really know that there was anything else that you could be, to be very honest. Um, I mean, the other thing that I wanted to do was be a teacher from like a very young age. It was either a teacher or a lawyer. But yeah, I think obviously my dad being a lawyer had a big role to play in it. And so yeah, that's what I always just because when you're a kid, and I was like, okay, when you grow up, like you're gonna be a lawyer because that's what the grown-ups are here. So yeah, it was that. And I remember in grade 5, I still remember my grade 5 teacher's name, Miss Gone. We did like a court case, and we did the um oh my god, what is the one with the three little pigs?
Okay.
So yeah. So like we divided the class into like lawyers for each of the pigs and the lawyer for the big bad wolf and everything. So it was really cool. But so yeah, I've just known from like early days that this is what I want to do. But I never thought of myself as doing family law. Um, when I thought of myself as a lawyer, especially because like as I said, right, with an interest in history and undergrad, I thought I would do like human rights work and like UN work and things like that. But no, man, I divide property for a living. Yeah. So there's Yeah, exactly. So it's not the area of law is not what I thought I would do, but the idea that I would be a lawyer has always been, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But also, like, I mean, the amount of study that you need to do, regardless of which type of law you're practicing, that remains the same. And you have been involved with the Human Rights Network or something, right? In like India or something, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, yeah. When I was in undergrad, yeah, absolutely. And a large part of that also was, as I said, right, I visit India like very, very often, like multiple times every year. And I was just so fascinated. I just wanted to see like how, because it's such a culture difference. And I was like, I want to know. And so it was the Human Rights Law Network, which is in Delhi, and they do a lot of like pro bono stuff. And I'd like given my resume, and they were like, yeah, absolutely. And then they were like, these are the hostels that we can have for you, and you like do this and whatever so that was really interesting, but that was more just like research based.
Mm.
But I did try. I mean, I haven't yet been able to just actually actualize it, but to connect with some lawyers in Delhi and stuff, just because I want to see like in a different jurisdiction. Because I have friends, for example, in Europe that are also lawyers, and I've seen the way that they do stuff, and I've seen court there. So it'd be really cool to see court in India too, like how different that would be. I also remember very, going back to Surigate, I was like, I need to somehow figure out how to be a lawyer and be in Surigate at the same time. So how can I figure this out? What kind of law could I do? So, yeah, unfortunately, nothing panned out there. But yeah,
Yet, yet.
yeah, yet, exactly. But yeah, in terms of studying, you do, because I mean, the law is evolving. It changes, circumstances change. Um, and for example, one of the things that we deal with now quite often is how so people live very far away now because remote work has allowed people to sort of relocate for where they want to go for work. Children are one of the key things that we look at, right? Is back in the day, an undergrad degree or even just high school was enough. So a lot of the law that was formula when it comes to like child support was 18 years old as the age of majority. So you would expect that at 18 you would be not independent, but somewhat independent. And then that changed to, kids now, you don't move out until after undergrad. So that's sort of an area of evolving in the law. And now you've got a situation where, be it the economy or the job market or whatever, you might have a 24-year-old or a 25-year-old who's still dependent on mom and dad. It's just the reality of what we do now. So like things like that, right? And they keep changing, and you want to be a part of some of the changes. I've had the privilege of having some clients in the last 8 to 9 years who have had that unique problem or that unique thing which needed to be addressed. So it gave me an opportunity to really say, something seems missing here and how can I fix it, kind of thing. So, which is really cool, but you don't get that often, right? Like your usual ones are just your run of the mill cases. But yeah, but I think the studying part, yeah, it stays always, always. You always have to,
Yeah.
yeah, and we're required actually. So part of, in order to keep your license in Canada, in order to remain licensed with the Law Society, you have to do CPD, continuing professional development. So every year you have to do a certain hours of like professional training and stuff.
Cool. Okay. Wow. Oof. The what came to me was that when you do get clients with these unique kind of cases, for example, has
Right.
there been anything that you have litigated where it's changed the law in some way, or maybe had, changed an amendment? I don't really know how that works. But have you done something like that where,
Yeah. So I mean, it didn't. I wouldn't say change the law, but it made a dent for sure. There's two actually. Well, one was where so spousal support. Very briefly, like spousal support is basically when a marriage ends. It's a financial obligation of one spouse to support the other, and that has nothing to do with. A lot of people would think it has something to do with sex. It really doesn't. It's just which party was financially dependent on the other. So I've done cases where husbands make a successful spousal support claim, and wives make a vice versa. And this was one where an individual had moved from British Columbia and had relocated here, and there wasn't a sponsorship or anything, and it was only like less than a 2-year marriage, and so it was, and there was extreme violence that was involved. So in short-term marriages, you can still ask for spousal support, and there's like several grounds for doing it. But in this one, technically she did move, but it wasn't like a sponsorship that had happened. It wasn't
yeah,
like, a sponsorship undertaking. And on the guideline, she was going to get nothing, literally nothing, because they hadn't been married for very long. But, it just seemed like this cannot be it. This cannot be that this person is not able to get the spousal support that they need. So I brought it as an urgent motion, and we were successful, and it ended up being it was pretty cool. And then I remember when that happened, and it created this like very, in terms of it was His Honor's commentary on moving for the purposes of your marriage and why it doesn't necessarily have to be. It was His Honor's commentary, really, that was really extremely relevant. And yeah, it's been reported several times. It's been like cited in certain cases and stuff. So that was really cool. And then there was another one about, if you start the case in a different province, which province is first, basically. And in this one, an application had been issued but not served in a different province. And in this province, it had been issued and served. But in the first one, he issued it first. That was my client, but he hadn't served it. And then wife here issued and served. And my position was, well, the law, it just says issued. It doesn't say issued and served. He wins the race. Whether he served it on her doesn't matter. He issued it first. And we were successful in that as well. So that was pretty cool. And that one's been cited quite often as well. So yeah.
amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And these would be called precedents, right? Like, or
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, because we're in Canada, we're a common law jurisdiction. So it's just basically your legal precedents, interpretation of the law, sort of. So yeah.
got it. And aren't you also a registered lawyer in India, not just Canada?
No, I have, no, I'm not in India. So India actually, at least from my understanding, has some pretty strict rules in terms of foreign lawyers, what they can and they cannot practice. So I'm not. I do not have license to practice in India. I have a law degree for the United States, but I haven't written my bar exam, so also not licensed. I could be licensed to practice in the United States, but no, just Canada.
Okay, got it. And do you also work on any immigration cases?
I used to, like early days. I did my articling with the Immigration and Refugee Board. Articling is like your apprenticeship, internship type thing, but not anymore. I focus now, not almost. I focus exclusively on family law.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you say family law, is it specifically only related to couples and divorces, for example, or what does family law cover?
So, I mean, so here in in Canada, in Ontario, what we're looking at would be like, so it could be married couples, common law couples, uh, people who are not really a couple but have a child together, and sometimes what we also have in family law cases would be like grandparents making applications for contact with their grandchildren, things like that. So it's really like property division from following the end of a relationship. We do a lot of like family law also entails what in the United States is called a prenup. We don't
Ah,
have that. We stick contracts or marriage contracts, but the idea is still the same. Yeah, things like that. That's really what that's kind of basically where a familial relationship has also created some other type of relationship that now needs adjudication is family law.
okay. Oh, that's a good definition.
Yeah, and I mean actually one of the like extremely interesting areas of law right now in Ontario and I guess over Canada is because we have a huge diaspora population. We're an extremely multicultural jurisdiction, which is fantastic. And it's fantastic from a legal perspective as well because we deal with so many unique situations. So for example, right now what the courts are like grappling with, and there's some case law right now, is that a and I say salvation, and I know it's not just salvation, there's other, but I'm just from my perspective, right? In
Sure.
salvation, the way our family structure is, you'll have multi-generational ownership. So the way that it could be owned however, but um, the way, for example, like a patriarch or a
Sure.
matriarch.
I can't hear you anymore,
Oh,
and I can hear myself in the.
better now. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, but your video is delayed.
Oh no.
Yeah.
How
Okay.
about
Yeah.
great? So yeah, so it's basically now the courts recognizing because you do need to have what cultural competence because what we have now is we've got we're dealing with division of property, right? So a wife, for example, will say that all of our family funds or whatever went into this property and we invested everything in this property, but neither myself nor my husband are actually on title of it, and I'm entitled to whatever it is that this person would say they're entitled to. But this concept of how a multi-generational joint family, so to speak, works, but in terms of asset, not even division, like in terms of ownership and such. So things like that. And that's really a developing area of the law right now. Or like understanding, for example, domestic violence or family violence, which, and that it can take different forms and, why someone wouldn't say something and sort of the cultural connotations of that as well. And one of the other things really is whether, significant amounts of money from your parents or gifts or loans and such. So, you would think it's a loan, but I think that there needs to be certain cultural awareness that in South Asian families it's actually quite normal for your parents to give adult children like a for a shit ton of money, like if they get married, like here or like for parents to pay their children's education without the expectation of it coming back. And there's that cultural component that the law is now, which is fascinating, is also catching up with.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, because yeah, I mean, here, for example, in Australia, it's like when you're 16, it's like you get out and you do your own thing, and the culture is very, very different here. Like obviously compared to India, also it is different, but I imagine it's also very different compared to Canada or the
Absolutely.
US or the UK. Yeah. Do
So
you
I
have
mean, like for me and my brother, right? My brother, like our parents paid entirely for our education, and like
same?
it's not we're not expected to like pay them back. So I don't have a debt, so to speak, right? Whereas, but they did advance a whole crap ton of money. And, tomorrow I was to go to court and be like, oh, actually, all of this stuff is a loan because look, my parents gave me all of this money. I'm sure the other lawyer would say, but was it actually, was it actually meant to be a loan, or, what really is the expectation of this coming back? So that kind of stuff, which is really cool. It's neat.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
does your day usually look like as a lawyer in Canada?
It really depends on like what is scheduled. So, what like for example, May is so we have something called trial sitting. So it's like at 3 times in the year, actually sometimes 4, but usually January. So winter, fall, spring, and summer sittings. Actually, no, it's more like January, May, June, and then September, October, and then sometimes November, and then back to January. So when all your trials are called. Trial is basically when you've tried everything that you can to settle, and then you go to court and you just argue out your whole case. So, for example, I'm on the May trial sitting. So from May 11th to June 12th, I'm gonna die. Like I just, and so in those 4 weeks, it's literally gonna be wake up at 5, prep for court, go to court, come back at 5, debrief. But that's it. And then this is also the luxury of being my own boss, is that then I'm off for like I'm in India then for like 2 weeks to blow off some steam, and then I come back. But so right now I'm sort of preparing and for those cases, and also then you recognize that okay, especially when you're on your own, is when I'm in trial for those 4 weeks. It's not that all of the other files just don't need work. It's that I've done the work sometime else, which is now. So it's just right now. It's just long days. This week, and I have some court in and out, in and out too, but mostly it's just yeah. So my days, for example, today was got in at like 7:30, 8 a.m. and it's just been emails and phone calls, emails and phone calls, emails and phone calls. Yeah.
Interesting. And these emails and phone calls are with clients, or are they with, someone in court? Like what is that?
So So it would be, it of course with your own client, but then with your opposing counsels as well, the other party's lawyer,
Okay.
and then you need instructions obviously from your client, and then also the way that you communicate with your client versus the way that you communicate with other lawyers is also, very different. And like, I don't know what it is, but I just feel like at least post COVID, because what we've had in Canada, at least, and I'm sure it's similar in other jurisdictions, is we've digitized a lot of our proceedings. It's electronic. So, like, for example, prior to COVID, email wasn't necessarily an appropriate form of service. It would fax. Like, we were still faxing. Up to 2020, I was sending faxes. It's crazy. I couldn't file a lot of stuff online. So it was, like, but I don't know if it's an accessibility thing. I don't know because it's dropped costs. I've just found that post COVID, everyone is so freaking litigious. Like nobody wants to settle. Court, 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 court. And so there's just a lot of aggression and stuff. So, sometimes a lot of the day goes in just dealing with other lawyers who are just like aggressive for no reason.
That is a fascinating observation that after COVID, you feel people have gotten more litigious.
Big time, like hugely, like the number of cases that used to settle. I mean, also I got called to the bar like 2 years prior to COVID, so I don't have a lot of pre-COVID experience, but enough to know that there's been a dramatic difference. But
Wow.
yeah,
Why do you think that
I,
is though?
I think a lot of it might just have to do with accessibility. I think it's courts are just more accessible because you can file stuff virtually, you can appear virtually. Obviously, like for example, a motion is a 1 hour hearing that we do. So there's multiple motions that are heard on one day. So pre-COVID, what would happen is I would be at the courthouse by 9:30. My motion could be called at 10 a.m. or my motion could be called the last one called on that day at 3. If you're my client, you're paying me from 9 a.m. to when I leave. It's a huge day of motions. Whereas with virtual, I can do other stuff. That's just one example. Before,
Wow.
I would have to hire a process server who would have to prepare your file, a physical file, and then put the red cover page and do the continuing record, go to the court, file it. Now I can file everything online. So I think there's a level there of accessibility and lower costs, even though technically it actually increases your cost if you go to litigation, but still it seems like more affordable. And also now, honestly, with AI and ChatGPT, it's crazy. Yeah.
What is crazy? Tell me more.
So like ChatGPT, like so many times, even with clients, I'm like, okay, that's like it's so obvious to tell when something, it's so easy to tell when something is ChatGPT. And I'm just like, okay, you put that into ChatGPT and now you're emailing it to me and now, and I call out my clients who do that. But I mean, a lot of lawyers are dealing with that. Incidentally, I had a trial, a matter not too long ago where I was served with with materials, and when I was preparing, I remember reading the other party's like legal submissions, and I was like, "There's no way there is a case so on point for mom that I have not. It's impossible because I've been researching, and this was a pretty significant court appearance. It had been scheduled months in advance." There's no way that I did not come across the case that they're citing. There's just no way. And I was right. It was a chat GPT factum. It was just completely hallucinated, fabricated cases.
Ooh.
And yeah, I mean, the other party lost because they were taking an unreasonable position, but this was one of the factors, and they had to pay like significant costs. But that's just my case. There are other cases that have been more sort of, that are more, that have been publicized a lot more, where like that have been covered in the news and stuff for stuff like this, right? Lawyers unfortunately using AI just to like, and it's AI, it's ChatGPT, just fakes a case, and you're sitting there thinking, holy shit, like bullseye, this is my exact facts, exactly what I need. And the judge made this fantastic quote about this thing. And it's funny though, because first lawyers were doing that and then the courts reprimanded lawyers for not checking that the cases actually exist and stuff. So like there's this big case, it was out of Toronto, and anyway, so that happened. And now what lawyers have done, and there's this now new part, is where the case exists, but it's like random quotes that don't exist in the case. So you'll go and check that, does this case exist? And does it kind of say what I think it says? Yes, it does. And then you'll just let ChatGPT say, at paragraph 12, Justice such and such says this and that. And then you realize that, Justice such and such did not say this and that. And it's not there. And it's crazy. Yeah. It's pretty neat. Even if you just like, honestly, just put it in Google, like Toronto AI, ChatGPT lawyer. It's insane. It's crazy.
Wow, but
Yeah.
that is fascinating and also really, really scary because I think a lot of us yeah, law and lawyers, we take them very seriously. We know that there's so much work that goes in to become a lawyer. And then for, the kind of study you need to do, the kind of cases you need to reference, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And to then imagine that you can just get on Chat GPT and it's just manufacturing stuff, that's insane.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I mean, but that's not to say, that people shouldn't use ChatGPT and stuff. I think it's a great starting point. Like if you ever find yourself, in a situation like, oh, what do I do? Like it's a great place to start, but
Yeah.
it's not it's not it's not a substitute for a lawyer, most certainly. And and when that reminds me of, when you said, you give me like 2 or 3 words to describe yourself. That's why, I use the word lawyer and advocate as 2 separate words, because I don't
Yeah.
think that they're just, I think they're 2 different things. Being an advocate for someone is very different than just being a lawyer. Lawyer is just, I know the law and I know how to apply it, and I'm sort of well versed with like jurisprudence or legalese or whatever, and I know sort of procedurally what I'm doing. But an advocate is something that's very different. And I think that I know there's a lot of like, will lawyers lose their job? Like, will we not have this? Absolutely not. Because I think the human part of advocacy, it cannot be replicated by ChatGPT. And also like, come on, dude, like everybody knows when you went on ChatGPT, like get rid of the hyphens, man. Get rid of the random, like when I get an email, even if it's from opposing counsel and like random words are bolded, I'm like, all right, you got that off ChatGPT. Oh, like be better, do better.
So when I use, I have used ChatGPT earlier, but I always found it to be a bit, how should I put it? Like it felt robotic whenever I worked with ChatGPT. And then
Yeah.
I recently switched to Claude AI. And
Yeah, I've heard.
Claude sounds a lot more like human in that sense, where I feel like I almost have like an assistant. But and in Claude, you can actually put a memory or instructions where you say that, hey, I'm a 45-year-old woman, I've been working as a photographer for 22 years, was in India,
Yeah.
moved to Australia. So you've given it context. So one of the context sentences that I put in the instructions was, don't ever use hyphen, only M dashes.
I get it. Like,
Yeah, because
honestly,
I use a lot of dashes in my own writing anyway. So I was like, yeah,
right.
this works, but how do I even get the, thing on my laptop? Like, where's the key for that? So I only use the M dashes. So I'm like, that's good enough. Thank you.
It's actually, it was funny because I was talking to a colleague of mine and she said the same thing. She was like, I have to change the way I write because, and she's always used dashes and I've seen it, right? And she's like, everybody thinks it's ChatGPT. It's not, it's me. And she has like changed the way that she writes. But to your point, like I actually wrote back to this lawyer because I was like cheesed. But anyway, and I wrote back, I was like, next time in ChatGPT, put the prompt, do not use hyphens in the narrative.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
it was funny. It was like,
I feel like it's, for someone like me, the kind of things I use it for, like, for example, when we're done with the podcast, I'm going to get
yeah,
the transcript of the entire audio. And then I'm going to
right,
put that in Claude AI and be like, oh, can you pick out like 2, 3 pull quotes, sentences which are unique or which if someone reads, they will leave an impression. I use it for
right.
stuff like that. So it's not for actually doing research or looking for, like you said, cases that have been cited or if a judge has said something. It's not for that yet. But
Yeah,
it's
and I mean,
interesting.
one of our other limitations, right, as lawyers, why we can't use it in our profession is because I can't upload my clients' confidential information on a public forum such as ChatGPT. So it's very limited, you know, very limited on
There,
sort of what
there,
that you would. For.
there is a firm here that I did some photography for. They're called Smokeball Australia. And what
Okay.
they essentially do is they develop AI software specifically for lawyers and law firms. But
Hmm.
that is for mostly for their, like their own database for each firm, their own cases, so that the lawyers within the firm have access and, they can get
Right.
somebody. Yeah. So for that, they develop specific software for that.
Yeah, like you can make like precedents and stuff like that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I use it for like small things as well, right? Where I'll be like draft an email saying blah blah blah. It's just easier. And I mean, and there's no doubt, like we need to know how to use AI. Like we need to get used to and it's just the way of the future. It's like the same thing as people early on that were like, oh, I don't really want to do the internet. Like, no, it is an inevitable reality and we're gonna have to figure it out. It's just obviously there's some limitations on how we can use it, but it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So we kind of have to learn how to live with it.
It's interesting you say that because Australia, I mean, especially Adelaide, where I am, it really feels
Yeah.
like Delhi from 15 years ago, where people were like, oh, Instagram, I'm not on Instagram. I don't have time for that stuff. So,
Yeah.
here we are talking about AI, and there are people and companies who are using AI to, a level that I probably even haven't considered. But at the same time, there are a lot of people in Adelaide who aren't even on Instagram. They're still using Facebook and Facebook groups and stuff, which is very like 15, 20 years ago of what India used to be like. And like someone just mentioned saying, have you used Replit or NBN? And I'm thinking I haven't even heard of them. So
I've
there's so much that's happening and keeping track of that can be overwhelming. But I feel like having some sense of familiarity with what these AI platforms are, I think it's good to do that.
And look, it's gonna make our jobs easier, no doubt. Like absolutely, and we're gonna get like, if you don't get on board, you're gonna be left behind. It's bottom line, right? But yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting though, because it is still like early days, right? So we're still trying to figure it out. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I use like, sometimes I'll be like, I'm thinking of doing this. Does that make sense? And then, even like legal questions or something. And then
Sure.
obviously then, you go through it. But it's a great place to start, honestly. I'd be lying if I said I don't do that. Like,
Oh, no,
a
no,
client
for
came in,
sure.
yeah. And then it'll just be like, oh, do this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes, especially when I'm feeling, overwhelmed, where I've had a day of just emails and calls, at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, what were the things I was supposed to actually do today? And then it'll be like, oh, have you finished that edit yet? And I was like, shit, no, I haven't. So it
Yeah, yeah,
remembers.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, all the time, all the time.
I feel
Yeah,
like it has genuinely become like an assistant for me, and it's very helpful, especially because I've been working solo my whole life.
I was
You
gonna
know,
say, yeah,
it's difficult to, you sometimes miss the bigger picture. You're just into the tasks every day that, oh, I had to call that person, send that invoice, do that. But in terms of like a business structure and a flow or the strategy of what it is that I'm doing, and it automatically it'll check with me 2 days later, oh, did you finish that edit by the way? And I'll be like, shit, no, I did not. So I really appreciate it.
I didn't know that you could do. Oh, that's cool. Set reminders on ChatGPT. Interesting. No,
I never.
I asked ChatGPT everything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even set reminders. I just said that there is this client that I photographed for a month and a half ago. And,
Okay.
this is who they are and this is where they work and, what kind of edit would they like, for example. And it
Okay.
will tell me that, oh, okay, this is a very important client for your business, by the way. So it is important that you deliver the images. And I'm like, oh, shit, I didn't even consider that. So that kind of information that it has, that it's telling you that this is an important client for you who could hire you as a photographer and a content creator. So time is money. And I'm like, oh shit, okay, I didn't even know that. Because I'm new
Yeah.
here, right? I don't know the names of companies that do things and like, I don't know what they do. But because I
Yeah.
put it in Claude is like, no, no, they're very important for you. And after that, 3 days, and I'm like, I've already been procrastinating for like a month.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Claude will be like, oh, 2 days ago you had said, like, have you started the edit? Have you finished the edit? So it does that. And I'm like, shut up, don't ask me about this again.
Yeah.
Just let me
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. This is the reason I work for myself, so that I don't have to do this shit. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
many?
AI is like next. Like that's really the next.
It's interesting,
Yeah.
it keeps coming up in all my podcasts. I don't think I ever lead with the question, but invariably AI does come up, no matter who I'm speaking with.
It absolutely it has to. And like I use AI like because I think a part of like whatever job it is that you do, right, is like your emotional management and your mental health is also such a part of it. And I like fully use AI for that. I'll just be like, I got this bill today and then I was really upset. Like, should I be upset? And then AI is like, yeah, absolutely you should be upset. Like, what an asshole on the other side. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm not being and like
That too.
like some of my prompts are like, am I being dumb? Like, am I stupid? And then they're absolutely, no, you're not. No, you're not. Here are all the reasons why you're not dumb. And I was like, okay, great. This is lovely.
But honestly, have you tried Claude?
I haven't, no.
You really should.
Okay,
Even just the free version is exceptional. I find it so much better than ChatGPT.
I'll try it.
And these days you can transfer your memory from ChatGPT to Claude. And Claude will all have that kind of context already.
Nice. I will
Yeah.
do that. Yeah. Because I
Yeah.
want to try new things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
And I keep telling Claude, I said, yeah, I keep telling Claude, it's like, don't be a kiss ass. Just because I am using you, don't just give me stuff that I will be happy to hear. Play the devil's advocate. You
Yeah.
only have one side of the story. What could be some of the reasons why the other person did this or said this? And so I've told it. Now I put it in the instructions, never be a kiss ass.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like one of my things, right, that I also put on ChatGPT when I have to like draft something or like, when I'm drafting like a retainer or something like that, is like sometimes I get like and I put it in ChatGPT, right, where like I get like mad imposter syndrome. And I'm just like, holy shit, I can't be saying all these things about myself. Like, whoa, who do I think I am kind of thing, right? So then I actually tell ChatGPT that, I don't want to come across as whatever, and it'll just tone it down. So instead of me spending like 3 hours, going through this email trying to like tone it down, it just does it for me. Or I'll just be like, oh, I just put in my details, like my credentials, so to speak, on ChatGPT, and it just spit this thing out, and now I've done it. It's not like me who said all these wonderful things about me.
Yes. Yeah. It
Yeah.
reminds me, Claude constantly reminds me that, sometimes I ask it to do research on pricing in Australia, like what do photographers charge? I have this much experience. Or as a content creator, what are brands paying, for example, in Adelaide? This is the kind of business. So it'll give me all these details and then it'll be like, Now, do you want me to fit it in the context of you having 22 years of experience, having worked with these international brands? These are the rates I actually suggest for you. And then I look at those rates and I'm like, oh my God, I can't charge that kind of money. And I'll be like, no, isn't that a bit much? And he's like, no,
Yeah.
it's not.
Dude, I'm telling you, 9 years in to this day, I'm just like, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. Every time I send out an invoice, I'm just like, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit, you know? And yeah, but I just feel like that never goes away, you know?
True. Yeah. No, but
Yeah,
I feel a lot more comfortable sending invoices now because I recently, there was a very large broadcasting television radio network that reached out to me to do a bunch of, content and reels for Australia, explaining Australia to immigrants, for example. And so I put it in ChatGPT, and I was like, sorry, in Claude, and I was like, okay, what is this, and how should I do it? What kind of money do they pay? What are they worth? Stuff like that. I asked it, and it gave me a figure of how much I should be charging based on their brief. And
right.
I looked at that number, and I was like, huh. And I was like, could you like reassess this, and maybe like look at a little more research? Are you pulling this out of thin air or whatever? And it
Right.
did whatever it did. And then it came back to me with a higher figure saying, you were right. I should have done a little more research. And I was like, oh my God. And dude, I
Yeah,
actually sent it to them and they accepted it.
I'm telling that's what I'm saying. Like it's crazy. And I know like you and I, like we've had this conversation like in person where it's just like, holy shit, like how can I like ask someone like that's so weird, especially when you're solo because it's really you setting your own. Yeah, it's like market rates and blah blah blah, but like it is just you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like also, and now I'm at a point where so like one of my best friends, she's a fantastic lawyer, she's out in Calgary, and she always says, you're not paying for the minutes, you're paying for the hour, for the years. And I mean, she's like literally the most fantastic lawyer ever to walk the face of the earth. So I'm just like, okay, yours makes sense, dude. But you know what I mean? Like, it's just, yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was another thing I wanted to know. Like, do you talk to other lawyers? Like, do you guys
Oh,
talk about, oh, like, for example, you had this thing that you observed about post-COVID, more litigious people, pre-COVID. See, yeah, okay, okay.
especially when you're on your own, so you sort of like create your own network. And like, there's so many lawyers that I call in like times of crisis. So Andrea, my friend that we went to law, we were actually law school roommates, and she's out in Calgary and practices a completely different area of law that has
Sure.
nothing to do with my area of law. But yeah, no, all the time. Whenever I have like, you have to call your friends. There's really nothing in this world that you can do by yourself, honestly.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah, no, I
and
agree.
back because and sometimes when I question myself, I'm like, should I think when any one of my friends or colleagues would call me to be like, hey, how do I like what the heck do I do? I never say, oh my God. I'm always like, yeah, absolutely, I'm totally here to help, like how can I? So yeah.
Yeah. Just yesterday, I was talking to one of my friends, and she's in London. She had a book launch, and that's what we were talking about. She's written a book about boards and how to be an effective board member. And I was like,
Okay.
as a solopreneur, how do I like build a board? And she was like, it's like having a council around you, right? You have everyone will give you some piece of advice. Of course, you have to know that it's from their lens. But just even
Right.
having someone to talk to, sometimes I feel like it clarifies my own head that, okay, yeah, this is what I need to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. Or just like even honestly, just something that I was dealing with today. Like I called another friend of mine, and I was like, okay, I know the answer to this question, but I just need another smart person to confirm. They were like,
Yeah.
yep, you're right. I was like, okay, cool, bye. It's just like that quick, which is great, and it's just, you pay it forward kind of. So you never feel like, so it's great. It's a great community.
Yeah. No, and I've heard you on the phone talking to, I've heard you on
Yeah.
the phone talking to another lawyer once when we were in a car ride together in India. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, this is my friend. I was so proud of you. And I was so proud of me for having a friend like you. I was like, this is intense.
And I remember, you saying like you heard different. It's weird because you put on your hat when, you're like your lawyer hat, and then you yourself sometimes don't realize. And then you put the phone down and then you're like yourself again, and people around you can be like, those are two different people. But in your head, it's just you. No, I remember that clearly. I remember then we stopped at Burger King, had burgers, and talked about it.
Yes, we
I,
did. So
I remember.
when is your next trip to India next?
It's June 12th. No, June 14th. 2 months today.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah. And like one of my favorite things to do, honestly, Nana, you know this more than I fucking. Oh, sorry. I don't know if I'm allowed to use explicit language
You
in this
are.
live. I love, and maybe this is part of my profession. I don't know. I love writing emails. It's like my favorite thing to do. Oh my God. Nothing gets me as excited as writing an email. Like it's wild. Pretty funny.
How did you
I,
even come to that realization that you like writing emails so much?
I don't know. Like it's weird. I mean, I've journaled like ever since I was a kid. Like I had a diary and everything, and I do. I write and journal less now, but I used to before. And like one of the things that I also do that helps me, like even at like from in a professional setting, if I'm like really angry, I'll write that like email and I just send it to myself. And then
Sure.
if a few hours later I reread it and I still think it's appropriate to send, then I'll send it. And I can guarantee you 10 out of 10 times I'm like, oh, good thing I didn't send that. But yes, I love writing emails. So to answer your question, this is just literally Monday, yesterday, dear team, blah, 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 my favorite email of the year, and then blah, blah, all of like whatever. I love it. I love, this is, I guess, maybe the travel part. Like, I love itineraries. I love making itineraries. You know this.
Yeah.
This flight, that flight there, then I have to take this hotel, and then this car, and this. I love that shit. Which is funny because in India, that's like what? Like so many people have been like, what do you mean? What do you yourself included? You're like, bro, that's like 4 days away. And I was like, what do you mean 4 days? I've had this plan since last summer. I remember, and so yeah, that's a bit. So I feel like, especially even in like the travel sector, and I feel as much as it is a culture shock to me, I am a culture shock to it. Like I find, especially in this email, it's like why? Especially in India where like everything is on WhatsApp.
Yeah. Yeah. In India, especially, the culture is so like, it's like, oh, we'll see you on the day off. Even for, shoots and stuff, I used to be like, can you please confirm the date and send me the 100% advance? And they'd be like, 100% advance? And I'd be like, yeah, I don't work without that. But in India, it's like, they'll be like, but even the shoot or the event is not confirmed yet. So then I'm like, why the fuck are you calling me then?
Yeah, just like exactly, or just like general play fighter. Like I procrastinate and I'm super disorganized in all parts of my life except this. No, no, no. I'm an absolute like trust me. But when it comes to travel, hell no. Girl,
Yeah.
I know the seat I'm sitting on. I know the car that's going to pick me up. I even know, like, appropriately what the traffic is going to look like when I go from the airport to the hotel. I know everything. I can tell you today what I'm going to have for lunch in Delhi on June 16th because I've already planned it.
Sweet. Cool.
And I love
Yeah.
it, It's just, yeah. And it's just, so, you take that, the chaos that is sometimes professional life, and then you just, it's paradox sort of in another part of life, which is great.
No, but that's, I think, one of those things that you also talked about, mental health and burnout. In that
Oh,
sense, it
yeah.
gives you something else to be busy with. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. And it helps me visualize a little bit more what I mean, as opposed to this like vacation that's out there. I mean, I'm a lot better at it now because like before and I think that it's important, for everyone to know that like there's such a fine line between like not dealing with your crap and just escapism. And then there's the work on it. And now it's like a healthy life balance where it's a great part of your life. Because before I think it was the former. And now I think, slowly as I work, it's the latter.
Yeah. Yeah,
Before I
I
was just
feel
like,
like,
everything sucks, can't wait to leave. Then you put all your eggs there, and now I'm like, oh no, like it's actually pretty okay. Like I enjoy my work, I enjoy this, but wouldn't this also be fun? So yeah.
no, and that what you're having for lunch. It's like, in a way, it's you're looking forward to it. So there is that anticipation of that. Because
Absolutely.
I find sometimes that if I plan it too much and if something goes awry, then I get really upset. But over the years, I've realized that I like having some sort of structure in place. And then I'm open to it. If it changes, I'm cool with it. I'm like, yes, this is what life is presenting me right now. I'm here for it. But yes,
Absolutely.
it's nice to have something to anticipate.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like, it early on, I was also like that. I would be devastated when it didn't go to plan. You've been there. You've been a first person observer of this. I'll be like, what do you mean this thing to happen the way that I imagined it 6 months ago when fully emotions are involved? But now I'm like better at it, which is good. But I still like planning for it. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean it's fun. Whatever. See, that's the thing. Whatever brings you joy, essentially, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
honestly, I'm telling you, making itineraries gives me so much joy, whether it's mine or somebody else's. Like my brother recently got married, in India, and I did like a lot of the logistics, and everyone was like, "Oh my god!" So much. I was like, "Dude, heaven, talk to me. Give me Excel sheets. Give me schedules. Give me." They were like, I'm like, "Oh my god, tell me how many rooms, who needs." I will do it. I will do it. Who's gonna pick up who? What are gonna be the cars? What are gonna be the flights? It was so much fun. Like I loved it. I'm
Have
like,
you
yo, give it to me.
considered have you considered alternative career as a wedding planner?
Where, not as a wedding planner, but a lot of people have told me that I should do like a travel, like social media thing, just for just. I mean, I've traveled a lot, like World War II, that type of like vlogging thing about like how to do if someone's interested in that, and then also in Rajasthan. But it's just like I just haven't. It's too much work.
Too much work, yeah. I mean, you already have enough work on your plate. There's no need to convert the stuff that you enjoy into more work. So it's fine.
The thing is, I already do it, but with my friends, which is so much more fun.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. People you share it with.
There, yeah, I've told you, just like, bro, show up. I'll do everything else because I love doing everything else. You're just like, no, I know the driver, girl. I know the driver's name and the license plate of the car that's gonna pick you up 2 months from now. Chill out. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's fun having you as a friend. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. Yeah.
All right, I think we are at the 1 hour mark.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. This
Thank
was
you
so
for
much fun.
coming on. Thank you very much.
No, okay. Bye. I'll see you in Rajasthan.
Bye. Take care.
You too. Bye.